Milan was a man who lived above the clouds. His mansion stood on the highest tower of the city, where the air was cleaner and the view stretched for miles. The world below him was crowded, filled with noise, traffic, and people struggling every day. But Milan did not belong to that world anymore. He was a billionaire, a man of vision who had built his empire with machines, technology, and endless work. His home was like a palace of glass and steel. Doors opened when he walked near them. Lights followed his footsteps. Robots cleaned the halls and prepared meals with perfect timing. Artificial intelligence spoke to him in calm voices, reminding him of meetings, numbers, and future projects. For many, it was a dream life. But for Milan, it was only normal. Yet inside this shining world was his greatest treasure, his daughter Alina. She was 13, small in body, but strong in heart. Alina had been born with weakness in her legs and lungs. She could not run like other children, and often she needed help to breathe calmly. Milan loved her deeply, but his love was mixed with fear. Fear that one mistake, one small illness, might take her away from him forever. That was why he trusted machines more than people. To him, machines did not make mistakes. People could be careless, but machines followed rules. He placed Alina under the care of AI nurses and robotic assistants that checked her health every hour. No outsider was allowed to touch her. It was his rule, his wall of safety. Still, there was one human inside his mansion who was not a guest, not a friend, but a worker. Her name was Nia. She was the maid who cleaned the rooms, folded clothes, and carried small tasks that the machines could not manage. She had come from the lower levels of the city, where life was harder. To Milan, she was invisible most of the time. He never asked her about her past, her family, or her dreams. To him, she was just part of the house, like a chair or a window. But to Alina, Nia was more than that. When Milan was away in meetings, Alina often spoke with Nia. She liked how Nia smiled gently and told simple stories from her childhood in the lower city. Nia never tried to make Alina feel weak. Instead, she encouraged her to believe that her spirit was strong even if her body was fragile. Alina trusted her warmth in ways she could not explain. Milan, however, did not see these small connections. He saw numbers, he saw rules, and he saw the future he was building. Sometimes he would stand by the glass wall of his mansion, staring down at the millions of lights below, and think to himself, I built this life to protect her. Nothing can harm her here. But deep inside, there was a loneliness he never admitted. His wife had passed away years earlier, leaving him only with Alina. Since then, he had buried himself in work, hiding his grief inside towering success. He thought money and machines could shield his heart from pain. One evening, Milan returned from a long business trip. His transport glided to the landing pad of the mansion, its engines whispering like soft wind. He stepped inside, his shoes clicking on the polished floor. The AI greeted him, "Welcome back, Milan. All systems are stable. Alina's health is normal." He nodded, relieved as always. The machines gave him comfort. They never failed to report the truth. But then, as he walked toward his daughter's room, something unusual caught his eyes. Through the half-open door, he saw Nia sitting beside Alina's bed. Alina looked pale, her breathing shallow. And then, to Milan's shock, Nia reached out and held Alina's hand. Not only that, she pressed gently on Alina's back, speaking soft words, helping her calm down. Slowly, Alina's breath began to steady. But Milan did not see the calm. He did not see the care. He only saw a broken rule. His face hardened. His footsteps grew louder as he entered the room. "Nia." His voice thundered across the walls. "What are you doing? How dare you touch her?" Alina's eyes widened, fear replacing the calm Nia had given her. She tried to speak, but her weak voice could not rise above her father's anger. Nia stood, lowering her head. Sir, I do not want excuses. Milan shouted. You know the rule. No one touches my daughter. You could bring danger to her. You are finished here. Leave at once. The silence that followed was heavy. Alina's lips trembled, and tears formed in her eyes. Papa, please, she was helping me. Please don't send her away. But Milan turned away. His heart was racing, not with calm logic, but with fear. Fear that his carefully built safety net had been broken. Fear that the one thing he lived for might be at risk. Nia looked at Alina with sadness. She wanted to explain, to tell Milan that human touch sometimes brought healing that machines could never give. But she knew he would not listen. His walls were too high, his trust in technology too strong. So, with quiet dignity, she bowed slightly and walked out of the room. The doors closed behind her, and her footsteps faded into silence. Alina lay back on her bed, crying softly. The machines blinked and beeped around her, showing perfect numbers, perfect graphs, and perfect stability. But inside her heart, there was only emptiness. And Milan, standing by the window, told himself he had done the right thing. He believed he had protected his daughter. Yet, for the first time in many years, a small voice inside him asked, "Did I make a mistake?" That night, the city lights below continued to shine, endless and bright. But inside the glass mansion above the clouds, a quiet shadow had fallen, a shadow that would soon grow larger, touching both father and daughter in ways they could not yet see. The next morning, the mansion was quiet. The robots moved about with soft sounds, polishing floors, preparing meals, and checking air systems. To anyone who looked from the outside, it seemed like a place of perfect order. But inside, Alina felt as if something important was missing. Nia's absence was heavy. Her laughter, her gentle words, her warm smile all gone. Alina sat in her bed, staring at the empty chair where Nia usually sat. The machines kept her comfortable. They brought her food, measured her heart, and adjusted the air. Yet they could not replace the simple comfort of someone sitting close and listening to her feelings. She tried to distract herself by reading stories on her hollow screen. The characters were brave and happy, but the words blurred in her eyes. She wanted to talk to Nia, to tell her how scared she had felt the night before. She wanted to say thank you. But now, that chance was gone. Milan, on the other hand, began his day as usual. He sat in his tall office chair, watching numbers float on his screens. Shares, investments, and new projects all rising higher. He spoke to business partners through holograms, his voice confident and strong. Yet deep in his mind, a memory from last night returned again and again, Nia holding Alina's hand. Every time he thought of it, his chest tightened. He told himself he had done the right thing. No one can risk Alina's health, he muttered under his breath. Not even for a second. Still, another voice whispered inside him, was it really danger, or was it care? He shook his head and buried himself in more work. By afternoon, Alina gathered courage to speak. When her father came into her room, she looked at him with pleading eyes. "Papa," she said softly, "why did you send Nia away? She was helping me." Milan sighed. He sat beside her bed, smoothing her hair. "Alina, listen to me. You are fragile. One wrong touch could harm you. I cannot allow anyone to risk your health. Machines are safe. People make mistakes." "But Papa," Alina whispered, "machines don't hold my hand when I'm afraid. They don't tell me stories when I can't sleep. They don't make me feel like I'm not alone." Her words pierced Milan's heart. For a moment, he had no answer. He wanted to explain that his fear for her safety guided every decision. But her tears made him feel something he had not felt in years: doubt. "I only want what's best for you," he said at last. His voice was softer now, but he still held firm to his choice. Nia will not return. We must move on. Alina turned her face away, hiding her tears. She did not argue further, but inside, her heart felt broken. That night, the mansion seemed larger than ever. The halls stretched endlessly, filled with quiet lights and the hum of machines. Milan walked through them, his footsteps echoing. Everywhere he went, doors opened smoothly, servants bowed in robotic grace, and systems reported stability. But no system could quiet the unease in his chest. As he passed by Alina's room, he paused. Through the small crack in the door, he saw her sitting awake, clutching a pillow, her eyes red from crying. His hand froze on the handle. He wanted to go inside and comfort her, but something held him back. He felt as if he was a stranger standing outside his own daughter's heart. In the lower city, meanwhile, Nia walked home with slow steps. Her small apartment was nothing like the mansion. The walls were old, the lights flickered, and the air smelled of dust. Yet, for her, it was home. She sat by the window, staring at the glowing towers above. She thought of Alina, her gentle smile, her brave little heart. She wished she could have stayed longer, wished she could have explained herself. But Milan's anger had been too strong. He did not want her near his daughter. Nia closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "I only wanted to help." Days passed. Milan worked harder, trying to bury the unease inside him. He bought new medical systems for Alina, ones even more advanced than before. They scanned her body, monitored her breath, and gave him reports full of perfect numbers. But the reports did not stop Alina from feeling lonely. She grew quieter. She refused to eat much, even when the robots served her favorite meals. She smiled less, laughed less. Sometimes she sat by the window, staring at the sky, wishing Nia would appear again. One evening, as Milan was leaving her room, Alina held his hand weakly. "Papa," she whispered, "do you ever think machines are not enough?" Milan paused. He looked into her tired eyes, and for a brief second, he felt something crack inside him. But then he forced a smile and kissed her forehead. "Rest, my child. Machines will always protect you," he said. Yet as he walked away, her question echoed in his heart. The turning point came late at night. Alina woke up with sudden shortness of breath. Her chest rose and fell quickly, and fear filled her eyes. The machines beeped louder, signaling distress. Robotic arms reached to adjust her breathing mask, but Alina pushed them away. She wanted a human hand, not cold metal. Tears ran down her face. "I want Nia," she whispered into the empty room. "Please. I want Nia." The AI recorded her words, but it could not understand her pain. Milan rushed in when the alarm sounded. He held his daughter, but she kept whispering Nia's name. His heart sank. He realized then that no wealth, no machine, no AI could give her what she longed for: comfort from a human soul. He sat by her bed all night, holding her hand, trying to calm her. His mind was restless. He thought of Nia's soft voice, her steady hands, the way she had calmed Alina with nothing more than presence. For the first time, Milan felt truly helpless. By morning, Alina was stable again, but weak. Milan had not slept. As he stared at her pale face, one truth grew clearer: machines could guard her body, but they could not heal her spirit. And perhaps, spirit was just as important as health. He remembered his harsh words, his anger, his decision to send Nia away. A wave of regret swept through him. Maybe he had made a mistake. But pride was strong. Admitting it would not be easy. Still, as he watched his daughter whisper Nia's name in her dreams, Milan knew the time was coming when he would have to choose between his pride and her happiness. That day, the sun rose high above the city. The glass towers glowed, and the sky trains rushed between them. To the world outside, Milan was still the great billionaire, a man untouchable and perfect. But inside his mansion, a battle was quietly building, a battle between fear and love, between machine and humanity. And in the center of it all was a little girl who only wanted the warmth of someone who cared. The mansion was quiet in the days that followed. Too quiet. The polished floors shined. The tall windows looked out over the glowing city. The robots moved with soft steps, performing their duties without error. Everything was in order, yet everything felt empty. Alina spent her mornings looking out of her window at the floating cars that moved across the sky. Her body was weak, but her mind was full of thoughts. She missed Nia every day. Her heart longed for the warm voice that had told her bedtime stories, the gentle hands that had soothed her fear, and the laughter that had filled the room like sunshine. The machines were always near her. They checked her temperature, counted her heartbeat, and showed charts on glowing screens. Their reports told Milan that everything was stable. But Alina did not feel stable. She felt tired more often, and her breath seemed to grow shorter. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, she woke up gasping, clutching her chest. Milan grew restless. At first, he trusted the machines. He told himself it was only a passing weakness, nothing serious. But as days turned into weeks, Alina's episodes grew worse. Her cheeks lost their color, and her eyes seemed heavy with exhaustion. One evening, Milan sat by her bed, watching her sleep. Her breathing was uneven. Every rise and fall of her chest made his heart ache. He pressed a button, and the AI nurse appeared with a calm voice. "Vital signs are within acceptable range," it said. "No immediate danger detected." But Milan did not feel reassured. "Then why does she look weaker every day?" he whispered, almost to himself. The machine had no answer. It simply returned to its station, blinking lights quietly. The next morning, Milan called doctors from the best medical centers in the city. They arrived in sleek cars, carrying advanced scanners and shining tools. They surrounded Alina's bed, running tests, checking her body from head to toe. After hours of work, they gathered in Milan's study. Their faces were calm but uncertain. "Her body is reacting strangely," one doctor said. "The machines do not show any clear illness." "Her lungs seem normal," another added. "Her heart is steady. But something invisible is affecting her. We cannot explain it." Milan's frustration boiled. "I pay you more than anyone in the city. You mean to tell me you don't know what's wrong?" The doctors lowered their heads. "We will continue researching, sir. But at this moment, we have no answers." They left quietly, leaving Milan alone with his storm of thoughts. That night, Alina woke again, coughing and gasping for air. The machines rushed to assist, fitting a breathing mask over her face. But her small hands pushed it away. She whispered through tears, "Papa. I don't want this. I want Nia." Milan froze. The sound of her voice, so weak yet so certain, cut through his heart. "I want Nia," she repeated, before closing her eyes in exhaustion. Milan sat beside her, holding her hand. For years he had believed machines could give her everything she needed. Now, hearing her call for someone he had sent away, he felt powerless. The following day, Milan tried to distract Alina. He brought her gifts, hollow books filled with stories, mechanical pets that could sing, even a small floating garden that glowed with rare flowers. But nothing worked. She smiled politely, then turned back to the window. Her heart was elsewhere. Milan asked gently, "Why do you always ask for her, Alina? Why Nia?" Alina looked at him with tired eyes. "Because when she was here, I felt safe. She didn't treat me like I was broken. She just treated me like me. Machines can't do that, Papa." Her words hit him harder than any storm. The illness grew stranger. Some days, Alina seemed fine. She would talk, smile, and even hum softly to herself. But suddenly, without warning, her breath would falter, her chest would tighten, and she would collapse back on her bed, trembling. The AI nurses recorded every second, but the data made no sense. The doctors came again, offering more advanced machines, but none could explain the cause. Milan stopped sleeping. He spent nights pacing the halls, his mind full of fear. Every time Alina coughed, he rushed to her side. Every time the machines beeped, his heart leapt. Yet no matter what he tried, nothing changed. One late evening, while the city lights glowed outside the glass walls, Milan stood in his study, staring at the skyline. His reflection in the glass looked tired, older than before. His mind returned to the image that haunted him, Nia sitting beside Alina, holding her hand, calming her breath. He remembered how her voice had been steady, how Alina had relaxed under her touch. It was the only moment in recent memory when his daughter had seemed truly at peace. For the first time, he admitted to himself, maybe he had been wrong. Maybe his machines, no matter how perfect, were missing something. Something only a human could give. He whispered into the empty room, Alina needs her. I sent her away, but maybe she is the answer. The next morning, Milan made a decision. He called his assistant and said, find Nia. I don't care how. Search the lower city, search every record. I need her back. The assistant was surprised. Sir, you want the maid to return. She is not just a maid, Milan replied, his voice heavy with regret. She is someone who can reach my daughter in ways none of us can. Find her. The assistant bowed and left. Milan returned to Alina's room. She looked pale, her breaths shallow. When she opened her eyes, she asked softly, Papa, did you bring her back? Milan took her hand. For once, he could not lie or give false comfort. Not yet, my dear. But I will. I promise you, I will. A small smile touched Alina's lips before she closed her eyes again. Far away, in the crowded lower city, Nia worked quietly in a small shop. Her life had returned to simplicity: dusty streets, noisy neighbors, and long hours of work. But her thoughts never left Alina. Sometimes, as she walked home, she looked up at the towers above. She wondered if the little girl was safe, if she was smiling, if she remembered her. She did not know that soon, a call would come that would change everything. In the mansion, Milan sat by his daughter's side all night. He no longer trusted the machines alone. He no longer trusted his wealth. His heart whispered the same truth Alina had spoken: machines could not give love, only people could. As dawn broke over the city, Milan made a silent vow. He would find Nia, no matter the cost. And when he did, he would beg her to help his daughter again. For the first time in years, the powerful billionaire felt helpless. And for the first time, he understood that saving Alina's life might depend not on technology, but on the humanity he had pushed away. The city was alive with noise and light, but Milan felt only silence inside his heart. He had everything the world could offer: wealth, technology, power, but none of it mattered as he watched his daughter grow weaker each day. Alina's strange illness continued. Some mornings she could smile, but by evening she would collapse in exhaustion. The machines worked without rest, checking every detail of her body, yet they gave no answers. Doctors came and left, shaking their heads with confusion. One night, when Alina fell asleep after a difficult coughing spell, Milan sat beside her bed. He brushed a strand of hair from her face and whispered, I promised your mother I would always keep you safe. But what if I am failing you now? He stood and walked to the tall window of her room. The city stretched far below, shining with millions of lights. For years, He had believed those lights were proof of his success, proof that machines and money could solve every problem. But now he wondered if he had been blind all along. His thoughts returned again and again to Nia. The memory of her calm voice, her steady hands, her gentle presence, it haunted him. He had seen with his own eyes how Alina had relaxed in her care. And yet, he had pushed her away. The next morning, Milan summoned his assistant. "Have you found her yet?" he asked, his voice sharp with urgency. The assistant shook his head. "Sir, the lower city is vast. Records are incomplete. Many workers live without registration. Finding one woman among millions is not easy." Milan's jaw tightened. "Keep searching. Use every resource. I want her found." Meanwhile, Nia continued her quiet life in the lower city. She worked in a small herbal shop run by an old woman. The air smelled of dried leaves and roots. People from the neighborhood came to buy simple remedies for headaches, coughs, or sleepless nights. Nia listened patiently to each person, preparing small packets of herbs and giving gentle advice. She had learned these skills from her grandmother long ago. In her childhood, machines had not reached the poorer districts. Families relied on traditional knowledge passed down through generations. Nia had watched her grandmother heal people with simple touches, steady breathing, and natural medicine. But when she grew older, the world changed. Machines replaced healers. Old knowledge was pushed aside. People like Nia had little choice but to take humble jobs in the houses of the rich. Still, she carried her grandmother's wisdom in her heart, even if few cared to hear it. Every night, as she walked home, she thought of Alina. She remembered the little girl's brave smile and fragile breath. She remembered how quickly Alina calmed when someone simply held her hand. Nia often whispered a prayer for her, hoping she was safe and cared for. Back in the mansion, Alina grew weaker. She no longer played with her hollow books or smiled at the mechanical pets her father had given her. She spent most of her time lying by the window, watching the sky. One evening, as Milan sat beside her, she turned to him and whispered, "Papa, I don't think the machines understand me. They check my body, but they don't see me." Milan's chest ached at her words. "I see you, Alina," he said softly. She shook her head. "You see my numbers, Papa. My charts, my reports. But Nia, she saw me. She made me feel real." Milan swallowed hard. He wanted to argue, to tell her he had done everything for her sake. But deep inside, he knew she was right. He had trusted machines so much that he had forgotten the human heart. That night, he made a decision. He would not rest until he found Nia. Days later, his search finally brought news. The assistant entered his study with cautious excitement. "Sir, we believe we have found her. A woman matching her description works at an herbal shop in the lower city." Milan rose from his chair at once. "Prepare the car. Take me there." The journey to the lower city was long. As the car descended, the air grew thicker, the lights dimmer, and the noise louder. The streets were crowded with people rushing about, their clothes simple, their faces tired. Milan had not been here in many years. He had almost forgotten how different life was for those below the towers. At last, the car stopped in front of a small shop with faded signs. Milan stepped out, his tall figure and fine clothes attracting stares from the neighbors. He entered the shop, and the air filled with the smell of herbs. Behind the counter stood Nia. She looked up, surprised. For a moment, her eyes widened, then she quickly lowered them, continuing to arrange packets on the shelf. "Nia," Milan said, his voice heavy. "I need to speak with you." She did not answer at once. Finally, she asked quietly, "Why, sir? You made it clear I was not welcome near your daughter." Milan hesitated. Pride wanted him to remain strong, but his heart was too heavy. I was wrong, he admitted at last. Alina is sick. The doctors cannot help her. The machines cannot explain it. But I remember, the night you held her hand, she calmed. She breathed again. I cannot forget it. Please, Nia. I need you. Nia's hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained calm. Sir, I am only a maid to you. What can I do that your machines cannot? You are not only a maid, Milan said. His voice broke with emotion. You have something they don't. Humanity. My daughter needs that. Please, come back. Nia stood in silence. She remembered the anger in his voice when he had fired her. She remembered leaving the mansion with tears in her eyes. But she also remembered Alina's smile, her courage, her gentle heart. At last, Nia sighed. I will come. But not for you, sir. For Alina. Milan lowered his head in gratitude. That is enough. When they returned to the mansion, Alina was lying weakly in her bed. Her eyes lit up the moment she saw Nia step into the room. Nia, she cried, her voice full of sudden energy. Tears of joy filled her eyes. Nia rushed to her side, taking her small hand gently. I am here, little one. Don't worry. Milan stood in the corner, watching silently. For the first time in many weeks, he saw color return to Alina's cheeks. Her breathing slowed, her body relaxed. It was a sight no machine had given him. And at that moment, Milan realized something he had never admitted before: all his wealth, all his inventions, all his machines were powerful, but without the touch of humanity, they were incomplete. That night, as the stars shone above the glass tower, Milan sat alone in his study. His thoughts were heavy, but for once, his heart felt a spark of hope. Nia was back. Alina was smiling again. And perhaps, hidden in the wisdom of the past, there was a truth stronger than any machine, that human hands, guided by love, could save what machines could not. The night was quiet in the tall glass mansion, but inside Alina's room, tension filled the air. The soft lights glowed, and machines beeped gently as they monitored her health. Nia sat close to the bed, holding Alina's hand. Milan stood nearby, his face pale with worry. Alina had grown weaker over the last few days. Even the smallest breath seemed heavy for her now. The machines tried to assist, adjusting her oxygen and scanning her body again and again, but the strange illness continued. No report explained why her condition was worsening. Nia stroked Alina's hair softly. Breathe slowly, little one, she whispered. In, and out, like the tide of the sea. Alina closed her eyes and followed Nia's calm voice. Slowly, her chest rose and fell in a steadier rhythm. The tightness in her face began to ease. Milan watched silently, his heart beating fast. He had seen dozens of doctors, spent fortunes on machines, yet none of them gave Alina this kind of peace. Nia's presence alone seemed to calm her. But then, without warning, Alina gasped. Her small body shook, and her breath became wild and uneven. The machines flashed red alarms, their voices sharp and urgent: warning. Patient oxygen level critical. Heart rate unstable. Milan rushed forward. Do something, he shouted at the machines, panic rising in his voice. Robotic arms extended, trying to place a mask over Alina's mouth, but she pushed it away, coughing hard. Her eyes filled with fear. Papa, she cried weakly. I can't breathe. Milan froze, his chest tightening as helplessness crushed him. He reached for her hand, but his own trembled. He had no idea what to do. Then Nia's voice cut through the panic, steady, clear, and full of purpose. Step back, sir. Let me help her. Milan hesitated for only a moment before moving aside. Nia quickly sat on the bed and lifted Alina slightly into her arms. She placed one hand gently on the girl's chest and the other on her back. Her voice was calm and rhythmic. Listen to me, Alina. Follow my breath. In, slow, out, slow. You are safe. You are not alone. She pressed gently at certain points on Alina's back, places she had learned long ago from her grandmother. The pressure opened the girl's lungs, helping the air flow more freely. Alina's panicked eyes met Nia's. Slowly, her breathing began to match the steady rhythm of Nia's voice. The wild gasp softened. The shaking eased. The machine still blinked red, but the numbers slowly improved. Oxygen levels rose. Heartbeat steadied. Milan stood frozen, watching this miracle unfold. His hands trembled not from fear now, but from shock. Nia whispered again and again, her voice like a soft river. In, out, you are strong, you are safe. Finally, after what felt like an endless storm, Alina's breath calmed. Her small body relaxed in Nia's arms. Her eyes closed, and she drifted into gentle sleep. The machines beeped a steady rhythm now. The alarms faded. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Milan's eyes burned with tears he had held back for years. He stepped forward slowly. You saved her," he whispered. Nia looked at him, her face calm but serious. She only needed someone to remind her she was not alone. Machines cannot give that. They give numbers, not comfort. Sometimes the body listens more to love than to medicine. Milan lowered his head, ashamed. All this time, I trusted machines more than people. I thought I was protecting her. But I was blind. Nia shook her head gently. You were afraid, sir. Fear makes people forget the simplest truths. Later that night, Milan stood at the window of his study. The city stretched below him, endless lights blinking in the darkness. But for the first time, he did not see success or power. He saw how fragile everything truly was. He thought of his wife, who had once told him, "Our daughter will need more than protection. She will need love." At the time, he had nodded but never truly understood. Now he did. When he returned to Alina's room, she was still sleeping peacefully with Nia sitting quietly beside her. Milan sat in a chair across from them. His voice was low, almost breaking. I owe you an apology, Nia. I treated you like you were nothing. I fired you in anger, without even listening. But tonight, you saved the most precious life in my world. I will never forget it. Nia looked down humbly. I did what anyone with a heart would do. No, Milan said firmly. Not anyone could do what you did. You carry knowledge the machines do not understand. You carry humanity. And that is priceless. The next morning, Alina awoke with more strength than before. She smiled when she saw Nia still by her side. You stayed, she whispered. Of course, Nia replied, squeezing her hand. I promised I would always be here when you needed me. Milan watched the scene with quiet awe. His daughter's eyes had light again. Her smile was real. It was not the machines or the doctors who gave her this gift, it was the presence of one woman he had once dismissed. As the day passed, Milan made a choice. He called his assistant and gave a new order. From now on, Nia is not a maid in this house. She is Alina's caregiver. Treat her with the same respect you treat me. The assistant hesitated, surprised. Yes, sir. Milan turned to Nia. Please, accept this position. Not as a servant, but as someone I trust. You are part of this family now. Nia was silent for a moment, her eyes soft. At last, she nodded. I accept not for the title, but for Alina. Alina clapped her hands weakly, her face full of joy. Papa, did you hear? Nia is staying. Milan smiled, a rare genuine smile that reached his eyes. Yes, my dear. She is staying. And this time, I will not let fear take her away. That evening, as the three of them sat together, Milan realized something had changed forever. For years, his mansion had been full of machines, but empty of warmth. Now, with Nia's presence, it felt alive again. He no longer saw her as just a maid. He saw her as the bridge between the world of machines and the world of hearts. And in that moment, Milan understood a truth greater than all his wealth, that the greatest power in the universe was not technology, not money, not control, but compassion. The days that followed were unlike any in Milan's life. For years he had lived inside a fortress of glass and steel, surrounded by machines, assistants, and wealth. Yet he had never felt as alive as he did now, simply sitting in his daughter's room and watching her laugh with Nia. Alina's health was still fragile, but her spirit grew stronger every day. She began to smile more, to eat a little better, to try and move her hands with Nia's gentle help. It was as if a hidden light inside her had been uncovered. One evening, Milan entered the room quietly. He stopped at the door, unnoticed, and watched. Nia was telling Alina a story about the stars, pointing to a small projector that displayed the night sky on the ceiling. Each star, Nia said softly, has its own light. Some are small, some are big, but even the smallest one shines in the dark. You are like that, Alina. Even when the night feels heavy, your light shines. Alina giggled. Then Papa is a big star. And you are the one that keeps me from being lonely. Milan's chest tightened. He had always thought of himself as the protector, the one who could give Alina everything. But he had given her walls instead of warmth. It was Nia who gave her what money could not: companionship, trust, and hope. That night, Milan could not sleep. He stood in his study, staring at the city lights below. His wealth stretched across the world: factories, companies, networks. But in all his success, he had missed the truth. He had been rich in money, but poor in heart. The next morning, Milan made a decision. He called for his assistant, a man named Ravi, who had worked with him for years. Cancel all my meetings for the week, Milan said firmly. Ravi blinked. All of them, sir. You have important contracts, they can wait, Milan interrupted. For the first time in years, I will stay home. My daughter needs me. Ravi bowed slightly. As you wish, sir. When Milan entered Alina's room later, her eyes widened in surprise. Papa. You are home. Yes, he smiled, kneeling by her bed. And I will stay. No more rushing away to endless meetings. Alina reached for his hand, her face glowing. That makes me happy. Nia watched quietly from the side, her eyes soft. She could see the change in Milan. His voice carried warmth now, not just command. In the afternoons, Milan began to join Alina's therapy sessions with Nia. Instead of watching from a distance, he sat on the floor beside his daughter. When Nia encouraged Alina to lift her arms, Milan clapped gently at every small success. When Alina tired, he was there to hold her hand. You can do it, my star, Milan whispered one day as Alina managed to hold a cup for a few seconds. I believe in you. The joy in Alina's face was brighter than anything Milan had ever seen in his business empire. For once, he felt like a true father. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in orange and gold, Milan asked Nia to walk with him in the garden. The air was cool, and the sound of birds echoed softly. I want to thank you, Milan said slowly. Not just for saving Alina's life, but for saving mine too. Nia looked at him with gentle eyes. You were always a father, sir. You only needed to remember what it means. He nodded. I was blind. I thought protection meant building walls, filling life with machines. But you showed me that what she needed most was presence, touch, and care. I will never forget that. They walked in silence for a while. Then Milan stopped and turned to her. I gave you the position of caregiver, but that word feels too small. You are more than that. You are family now. Nia lowered her head humbly. Family is not about words, sir. It is about actions. If Alina feels loved, then that is enough for me. Days turned into weeks, and the mansion slowly transformed. Where once it had been cold and mechanical, it now echoed with laughter, stories, and music. Alina insisted that Nia teach her old songs from her childhood, and soon the halls were filled with gentle melodies. Milan himself began to hum along, awkward at first, but then with growing ease. The staff in the mansion also noticed the change. They had always feared Milan's strictness, but now they saw a softer side of him. He greeted them with nods, sometimes even with smiles. The air in the mansion was no longer heavy. One afternoon, Alina sat in her wheelchair by the window, looking out at the city. Milan stood beside her. Papa, she asked, why do you always work so much? You already have so many things. Milan paused. For the first time, he struggled to answer. Because I thought success would keep us safe. I thought money could solve everything. But it cannot, Alina said softly. It cannot give hugs. It cannot sing to me at night. It cannot stop me from feeling lonely. Her words pierced Milan's heart. He bent down and hugged her gently. You are right, my star. I was wrong. But I will change. From now on, I will give you my time, not just my money. Alina leaned against him, smiling. That is all I wanted. Nia watched them quietly from the doorway, her eyes shining with quiet pride. That evening, Milan gathered all the staff in the main hall of the mansion. They stood in rows, unsure of why they had been called. Milan spoke clearly. For years, I built this house with walls of glass and machines. But I forgot that a home is not built with walls. It is built with people. From this day forward, this house will not only run with order, but with kindness. No one here is just a servant. You are part of the family that keeps this home alive. The staff looked at each other in surprise. Some even had tears in their eyes. Nia stood at the back, silent, but her heart swelled. She knew this was not the same man who had once fired her in anger. This was a man reborn through love. Later, Milan sat beside Alina's bed, reading her a bedtime story. His voice was soft, patient. When she drifted into sleep, he remained by her side, watching her peaceful face. Nia entered quietly, holding a blanket. She draped it gently over Milan's shoulders. You should rest too, sir, she whispered. Milan shook his head with a small smile. For the first time in my life, I am exactly where I need to be. Nia smiled and stepped back, leaving father and daughter together. That night, Milan finally understood the meaning of true wealth. It was not in numbers, not in contracts, not in the city lights. It was in his daughter's smile. It was in the hands that had once been pushed away, now holding his family together. And in that quiet moment, Milan vowed never to let fear or pride blind him again. The mansion had changed. Once, it had been a palace of cold steel and glass, filled only with machines and strict rules. Now, it was alive. Laughter echoed through the halls. Soft voices told stories. The scent of freshly baked bread drifted from the kitchen. Alina's health had improved steadily. She still needed care, but with Nia's presence and Milan's constant attention, her spirit grew stronger each day. She played in the garden, giggling as she watched sunlight dance on the fountains. She sang old songs with Nia, and sometimes, Milan even joined, laughing awkwardly but warmly. Milan had changed more than anyone else in the house. His world was no longer only about wealth, business, and machines. He had learned that the human heart, love, care, and trust was more powerful than any technology. He spent mornings reading with Alina, afternoons helping Nia with small exercises to strengthen her lungs, and evenings sitting together, telling stories or watching the stars. One day, Alina looked at her father with bright eyes. "Papa, do you remember when you thought machines could do everything?" Milan laughed softly, shaking his head. "Yes, my star. I thought machines could protect you, keep you safe, and make everything perfect." "And they couldn't," Alina said with a smile. "No," Milan agreed. "They could not give hugs, or calm fear, or bring light to the dark." Alina reached for Nia's hand. "I am glad you stayed, Nia. I feel safe now." Nia smiled. "And I will stay as long as I am needed." Milan watched them together. His chest swelled with emotion. The bond between them was stronger than any wealth he had accumulated. It was real, human, and precious. The following weeks were filled with joy and learning. Milan began to slow down in his business life. He delegated responsibilities to trusted partners, freeing himself to focus on his daughter and the home. He even introduced programs to help children like Alina, using his resources to make a difference beyond his walls. Alina thrived. Her lungs grew stronger, her arms steadier, and her laughter brighter. She often held Nia's hand while looking out at the city. Sometimes, she would point to the tall towers and say, "One day, I will fly there, Papa." Milan smiled. "Yes, my star. You will." Nia encouraged small exercises, gentle walks, and breathing routines that helped Alina improve. But she also reminded Milan that love, patience, and attention mattered more than any machine or medicine. "You cannot measure love in charts, sir," Nia said one morning. "But it can heal faster than any treatment." Milan nodded. He had learned this truth well. One afternoon, the mansion held a small gathering. Milan invited the staff to celebrate the improvements in Alina's health. They brought flowers, small gifts, and food. Milan stood before them, a changed man. "For years, I led with fear and rules," he said. "I believed machines and walls could protect my daughter. But I was wrong. True protection comes from care, presence, and love. Today, this house is not only mine, it is a home for everyone who cares for her, and for anyone who treats each other with kindness." The staff applauded, some with tears in their eyes. They had seen the change in Milan, and they felt it in the air. The mansion was no longer a palace of cold rules. It was a home, alive with warmth and humanity. Evenings became their favorite time. Milan, Alina, and Nia would sit by the tall windows of the mansion, watching the city lights blink below. Alina loved asking questions about the stars, the planets, and the people below. Milan would explain patiently, while Nia added stories from her childhood, tales of courage, kindness, and hope. One night, as the moon reflected on the glass towers, Alina turned to Milan. "Papa, do you think I would have been okay without Nia?" Milan held her hand tightly. "I cannot say, my star. But I do know this: she saved your life, and she gave me a lesson I will never forget. She taught me that no amount of money or machines can replace care." Alina smiled and leaned against her father. Nia watched them quietly, a small smile on her face. She had never expected such love to return to this house, yet here it was, brighter than the city lights outside. Weeks turned into months, and the mansion continued to be filled with laughter and warmth. Alina grew stronger each day. She began to learn to move her small legs with support, improving her confidence. She played small games with her father, sometimes rolling a ball across the floor, sometimes drawing pictures to hang on the walls. Milan watched her with pride, feeling a deep connection he had never understood before. He had learned that the most valuable things in life were not stocks, shares, or buildings, they were the people who depended on you and whom you loved. Nia, too, felt a quiet happiness. She had returned for Alina, but she had found a family who respected her and trusted her wisdom. She no longer felt like a servant, she was a guide, a teacher, and a friend. One sunny afternoon, Milan invited some children from nearby neighborhoods to visit the mansion. He wanted Alina to see other children, to play, and to feel connected to the world outside the glass towers. Nia guided the children gently, teaching them kindness, patience, and care. Milan supervised, smiling as Alina ran small races in her wheelchair, laughing freely. It was a moment of pure joy, a mixture of care, love, and human connection that no machine could ever replicate. As the day ended, Milan sat with Alina and Nia in the garden. The sky was painted with shades of pink and orange, and the fountains sparkled in the evening light. "Papa," Alina said softly, "I am happy now. I feel safe, and I feel loved." Milan hugged her tightly. "And I promise, my star, that I will always be here. I will always put love before fear." Nia placed a hand on Alina's shoulder gently. "And I will always be here too, little one." Alina smiled at both of them. "Then we are a family." Milan looked at Nia with gratitude. "Yes, we are a family. And I will never forget that life is saved not just by machines or wealth, but by hearts that care." The sun finally dipped below the horizon. The mansion glowed warmly from inside, its walls no longer cold and silent. For the first time in many years, it was truly a home, a place of love, laughter, and healing. Milan, Alina, and Nia sat together, holding hands. Outside, the city continued to shine, but inside the glass mansion, the brightest light was their bond, unbroken, enduring, and filled with hope. For Milan, the billionaire who had once relied only on machines, this lesson was the greatest fortune he could ever own. And for Alina, the little girl who had been so fragile, it was the gift of life, love, and a family rebuilt.